Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world famous Jonesy and Brown show. That is Mike Jones across the room. Well, not across the room, across the screen. We got to get back to like doing this in the same room again.
We definitely got to get back to that soon.
We stopped. We stopped during the pandemic, and we just never went back to being in the same room. We got to get back to that though.
We can still keep the video part going, but still.
Being in we got to get back to being in the same room. Anyway, look, man, we got baseball playoffs going. Houston Astros already eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend starts the NLDS. Starts on Saturday for the Philadelphia Phillies.
In
Philadelphia. Playoff baseball is coming back. The problem is, it's playoff baseball. It's supposed to be 80 degrees this weekend, man.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of playoff baseball, I should have a hoodie on. It should be cold. This is summer baseball weather, man. This is not baseball weather.
Does the idea of warm weather for this lineup really bother you playing in Citizens Bank Park?
No. Because as Charlie Manuel used to say, this is hitting weather.
Exactly.
So like I said, I don't like it, but I'll get over it real quick. We're going to talk a lot of baseball today. We're going to talk some football because your Eagles on Sunday. But we'll get back to that. Let's start with the good news. We got baseball this week. Got baseball coming up this weekend. So we brought in a special guest to talk baseball, because when we talk baseball, we got to bring this brother in. This man pretty much writes for everybody. He's a very busy man, and he took the time to holler at us this week. Mr. Rob Knox, what's going on, good brother?
What's up, my guys? Jonesy Brown. What's up, y'all? What's the good word, man?
Oh, man. Good. Pleasure to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no doubt. Always gotta make time. Always gotta make time for you all. I'm looking forward to the conversation today, and I'm ready to get after it.
All right. Well, I'm glad we brought you in here, because we need you to be the voice of reason here, because the problem is this. The problem is this. Hold on one second. I'm worried about this team.
You don't need to be.
Okay. Right off the bat. He said you don't need to be.
My man.
Not at all. Not at all. But if y'all can hold that thought for 1 second.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Run real fast.
No problem. We got you.
Great discussion here.
All right. Well, like I said, and I'm glad Rob is here and he's going to set us straight, because I was worried, and I'm still a little bit worried.
And what have I been telling you?
You've been telling me. You have said, and you've been steadfast about it, that this is going to work out. This is going to be all right. This team's going to be just fine.
This is a team that's built to win, in my opinion.
Built to win, but they have not. I don't feel like they haven't looked like they're built to win.
They haven't?
Not over these last couple of games. They
have the second best record in their league.
Yeah.
Second best record in baseball, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling me they haven't looked like they're built to win?
No.
How's that math
they
work?
have not. The math works with my eyes. I look at this team. I look at Ranger Suarez, his last couple of outings.
Mm-hmm.
I look at how this team has been able to score the baseball. How they've been able to produce runs.
So whose pitching staff do you currently like better than the Phillies? Because you're worried about the Phillies pitching staff. You're worried about Ranger. Whose pitching staff do you like better?
Look, I don't like none. Well, I don't like none of these teams, but
you
I'm
see what I
just
mean?
but what I'm saying is,
You still got Wheeler. You
I
still
get
got
it.
Nola.
Mm-hmm.
You still got Sanchez.
I understand that, but on any given day,
mm-hmm.
I mean, look, it's not like this team. Yes, I get that they're second best team in baseball. Great record.
Mm-hmm.
Earned a first round bye. They're sitting at home waiting for their opponent, waiting for a team to step up to play them in NLDS. I know,
and they were in the fight for best record until what, the second to last day of the season or something like that.
Yes, I understand. I understand. Look, let's bring Rob back in. Rob, you and Mike Jones are on the same page,
and with good reason.
Mike Jones believes that this team is built to win.
They are, and again, I think that baseball is such a funny sport, right? Because they could, whoever they play, whether it's Milwaukee, New York, or they get to NLCS, they could just abruptly stop hitting, right? As we've seen the last few years, and that's everybody's fear, and it's my fear too. But I just take a philosophical approach on it. If that happens, it's just not meant to be. I love our lineup. I think the Phillies have a lot of very high-end players. I just wish that there was somebody in the lineup that could consistently make contact, that you could say, a point, you're going to put the ball in play type person. They don't necessarily have a lot of that. And postseason does become more challenging to hit home runs on a regular basis. So that, again, that being said, I think that, I think that if the Phillies can apply consistent pressure, I think they can break through. I don't think that Milwaukee or New York's pitching staff should be able to shut the Phillies down the way they did, not too long ago. I think that piece is an anomaly. I think, they have some talented pitchers and things of that nature. But at the same time, the Minaya and some of the other Mets pitchers should not have as great of success against the Phillies as they are without the Phillies putting pressure on them. And I think for me, the concern was going through that is that it just didn't look like they were having competitive at bats.
The name I brought up to Jonesy when we started this conversation, the name I brought up was Ranger Suarez. I feel like at one point in time, I feel, in fact, up until that Orioles series, I thought Ranger Suarez was playing for the Cy Young. He's playing to keep his name in that conversation. And what I had said after that series was, if that series was a measuring stick, because there were people talking about, Philly and Baltimore playing in the World Series because they were both playing that well at that point in time in the season. And if that series was a measuring stick, the Baltimore Orioles took that stick and beat our asses with it.
Yeah.
And Ranger Suarez was somebody who I'm thinking was a Cy Young candidate, and he just hasn't looked sharp over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Since he's come back, the velocity has dropped, and that's a concern. But I think, again, where the Phillies are, and it was like this the first couple years, although Suarez was a lot more steadier. They're not looking for Suarez to go 6, 7, 8 innings, right? They just want him to go through the lineup one time, possibly into the fourth, maybe a second time, depending upon matchups and score and situation. So I think the belief is that he could get 9 outs and still keep them in the game. Obviously he's experienced in the postseason, and so I think that has some value. The postseason is so different. I just tweeted, because I've been watching these games today, and I know the Tigers threw a bullpen game, and I grew up in the era where, pitchers with 7, 8 deep, innings. You didn't even think about throwing a bullpen game. Baltimore, Tennessee, and been into the bullpen since the 4th inning and the 5th innings and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, man, this is just the way. And Rob Thompson thrown over.
Who do we talk about that with? We've had this conversation on this show before. And it might have actually been you.
Just talking about a year ago.
but talking about bullpen games in the playoffs. Like once upon a time, like I feel like that's something that as a kid, because all three of us are people who watched baseball as children, grew up watching baseball. And I don't believe I've ever heard of that up until the last 3-4 years of bullpen games in playoffs.
Yeah, it's just it's so weird to me, right? And I know that managers have their reasons and there's competitive advantage, and obviously nowadays bullpens are a lot more potent than they probably used to be, and everybody comes out the bullpen throwing like 95 to 100, and a lot of velocity, a lot of different movement and things like that. And I understand that sometimes in baseball the most important moment of a game could be the 5th inning instead of the 8th or 9th inning. So I get it, and I know that Rob Thompson is very aggressive with his bullpen, and the Phillies bullpen is definitely a strength this year. And I think that the thing. Two things. The thing you got to worry about with a bullpen is that the earlier you go to them, that means the more that everybody has to be on the game. Mm-hmm. So you may go to your bullpen in the 5th inning, bring them in, get out the 5th, get out the 6th. Now all of a sudden, here comes the 7th, here comes the 8th, and there's the struggle. And now because this guy's not throwing strikes or whatever the case may be, and then there's also this, and I think this happened really in the 2016 World Series between the Cubs and the Indians, is that you can use your bullpen so much that it becomes a weakness. Mm. And I mean that from the standpoint of the more a hitter sees a pitcher, the more the advantage that they have. So you look at in that series, Andrew Miller for the Indians, he was dynamite. But by the time he got to game 7, it was like he had nothing. Same with Aroldis Chapman. They had nothing, and then the batters were able to hit both of them hard in that 7th game or whatever the case may be. So I think, unfortunately, the more that you see a bullpen, the more the advantage, in my opinion, switches to the hitter. But but again, I mean, the Phillies do have lockdown relievers, and I'm still not. Estevez has been a little shaky. Closing out K's this year, but he usually finds a way. Hoffman and Strom have had moments. Ryan Kerkering, got that experience last year. It's gonna be interesting to see how he performs. And I mean, if they get Alvarado back to just regular, my God, what a weapon that is coming in the 5th or 6th inning. To shut the lineup down Bridge. I mean, we all remember the 1990 Cincinnati Reds and how they use those nasty boys to basically start pitching with 6. Then combination of Randy Mize, John Franco, and Rob Dibble went 7, 8, 9, and you rarely scored against them.
So JB is probably a little more like, I understand Rangers' velocity has been down and all, but overall still with Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, the bullpen. I'll ask the same question I was asking JB while you were out for a second. Is there a team in the playoffs whose pitching staff you would rather have than the Phillies?
No. I like the Phillies pitching staff all day. I like that combination of, Wheeler's been a horse. I mean, here's the thing with Nola. Nola's going to keep you in the game. Mm-hmm. He very rarely is going to have just a straight awful game. I mean, obviously he had that against the Mets, so he had that against the Marlins in September. So that's always in the back of your head. And then I think people were down on him in playoffs because in 2022 there was an opportunity in Game 4 with Phillies up 2-1, and he went to Nola to start Game 4, and he wasn't awful, but he just couldn't keep the Astros from scoring. I think he scored like 3 or 4 runs or whatever, but it turned out it wouldn't matter because the Phillies got no hit. And then last year in Game 6, he just, Arizona blitzed him in the 2nd inning last year. So that's what people kind of remember, but they don't necessarily remember how well he performed in the ALDS or in game 2 of the NLCS or whatever the case may be. So I like the Phillies pitching staff. I mean, I don't want to disrespect the Mets or the Brewers starting pitching, but I think the Phillies have better starting pitching. Again, I think it just comes down to how they are going to compete against those starting pitchers. I always feel like teams really battle against Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, and you're like, man, okay, well, they're battling against the best. Then how come the Phillies can't do that consistently? They do a lot of quiet outs. So, I would rather have the Phillies pitching staff. I think the Phillies are the best team in the National League, but at the same time, there's some quality teams in the National League that you can't take for granted, and any of them could beat the Phillies if the Phillies aren't at the top of their game. The Phillies just can't show up and say we're the Phillies and expect to advance to the next round. The Mets have proven that they're very formidable. They've been playing really great baseball for the last few months. Milwaukee is always tough. But again, those are two teams I feel the Phillies can handle when they are right. So, we shall see. The Mets Phillies NLDS will be very interesting.
All right. So I got more questions to ask you about I got more questions to ask you about the other side of the ball. I'll give you a second, but first I'm gonna pose this question to my man Jonesy. All right, probably one of the bigger things that this team also struggles with is manufacturing runs. This team can hit home runs. They got people who hit big, can hit the long ball, but sometimes you need to manufacture some runs. There's going to be a 2-1 game, a 3-2 game. And they need to be a team that can score runs. Does that bother you? Does that scare you at all? Or do you feel like the team can swing the bat consistently enough?
In a 2-1 game, the Phillies hit 2 home runs. That's just how that happened. That's how this team is built.
Mm-hmm.
If 2 runs is 2 runs.
But what about
how you get them?
What about if it's the other way around? It's 2-1, they down 2, and they swinging for the fences and not leaving runners on runners in scoring position, leaving runners on base.
Yeah, I get it. And to an extent, I do share your concern. I think to some extent, Rob did as well. We all want that guy who could just come in and you could count on him to make contact, get on base, get the next man to the plate. Let's be honest. That's not how baseball is played anymore across a large chunk of the majors, not just the Phillies that are talking about things like launch angle and exit velo and all of that stuff. That's where we are in baseball now. I can't go back and say I want guys to hit singles through the gap and then steal the base and move the runner. That's just not how that game is played anymore.
You still need to be able to play some small ball. You're not going to hit the ball out the park every time.
And I think for me, I agree with you, John. I'm sorry to butt in, but I agree. I think you do need, if you get the leadoff double, you should score it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my philosophy. I don't think the Phillies have done enough of that this year. There's times where they waste leadoff doubles or leadoff hits and things like that. And again, obviously the pitcher out there, he's making money too, so he has his goal is to get out the inning. So I get it. But I think I think overall, people want to dread. Obviously, because the tables were returned the last 2 years where the Phillies played in the wild card and the Braves didn't. The Phillies blitzed them in 4 games. But I think part of that too is, Atlanta's pitching staff also wasn't the sharpest, right? As it could have been. 2 years ago, Strider was coming off of an injury. Freed was dealing with something last year. So again, I think that I think there's some opportunity. I'm not making excuses for the Braves. The Phillies beat them, but I just want Philly fans to kind of understand that it's not because the layoff that that the team not going to hit or whatever the case may be. If they're not going to hit, it's because the pitcher is going to throw things. And you think about last year's game 1, Rangers started Rangers started the game, and I think he was out by like the middle of the fourth inning,
Mhm.
and the Phillies bullpen pieced it together to the end. And that's challenging for an offense. And I think Trey Turner made a really great double play to end the game and stuff like that. So, I think at the end of the day, man, I think that Phillies fans. I mean, we're always going to worry because that's just who we are. That's just our nature.
I fight that a lot of times, but it's true. It's absolutely true. I am a warrior.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm sitting there and because honestly, I wish I had Mike Jones's confidence right now. I'm jealous of Mike Jones's confidence right now and I tip my hat to Mike Jones because Mike Jones has been telling me for weeks, "Hey man, calm down. We're gonna be all right. This team is good." And I'm sitting there like, "Are we looking at the same team?" It's like I'm worried, and I don't have answers to every question. You're right. So it's not like he's out here making arguments. Neither of you guys are making arguments that like I'm struggling to understand. You're absolutely right. Yet I watch this team and I'm worried.
Yeah, and again, like think about it. Okay, they get the Mets. They just played the Mets 7 times over the last 2 weeks of the season, and the Mets won 4-7, right? The last 2 games in New York, the Phillies just didn't hit, right? They scored the first inning run, and they got 2 solo. They scored the first inning run on Sunday night. Wheeler lost that because Nimmo hit got a hold of one, hit a home run, lost 2-1. And then that Saturday, they couldn't hit. They had 2 solo home runs, and they ended up losing in the seventh because of the bullpen. So so things like that are very frustrating because this team didn't hit, but they pitched. And I think in the postseason, I think that's the biggest thing is just can they hit enough and put enough pressure on these pitchers? And I think for me, it's funny because somebody else, I didn't look at this, but apparently the season series this year, the Phillies went 7-6 against the Mets, and the 6 and I think in those 6 losses, I think Taijuan Walker started 3 of them. I know he started in London. I know he started last week. I guess he must have started one of those 4 that fourth game in Philly that they lost. So
he did start in that series as well. And it wasn't pretty.
So again, so it's like it's one of those days where okay, well, he the Philly, the Mets and Philly series was close, but wasn't really that close.
He removed Taijuan Walker games at 7-3.
Gladly remove Walker. I will gladly. I don't even want to see him with a uniform on. I want to see him in a suit.
I mean, if it's anything like last year, he won't be on the playoff roster. So
put him in the nosebleed section. In fact, Walker can come over to my crib. He can watch the game with me at my crib. I don't even want him in the building.
So 3 of the starts were by Taijuan Walker, and in this game in Philly, he pitched 3 1/3, allowed 4 hits, 2 runs, both earned, had 2 walks. I mean, it wasn't awful. He just wasn't effective, right? He threw. Let's see. I'm trying to. Oh, it's going to be on there. It's going to be on another one. But the Phillies ended up losing that game in 11 innings, 6-5. So he gave up 2 runs, but it was 4-4 after 9, and the Phillies ended up losing in 11 innings, 6-5 to the Mets. But again, so Taijuan didn't get a decision there. He did not get a decision in London. Obviously, that was the game Alvarado blew, and the Mets won on a crazy double play. Phillies had the bases loaded, and I forget who hit the ball back to the pitcher, and he went 1-2-3 double play to end the game. So again, I mean, baseball is baseball. I mean, you can sit here and nitpick on a lot of stuff or whatever the case may be, but the bottom line is, they're gonna have to show up and play well. And they're capable of doing that.
Is there a player on this team? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So we do all seem to recognize the one potential major flaw this team has shown is that they have the ability for all the bats to go cold seemingly at the same time. What is it about this team where when they have all these high-powered and these guys are good baseball players, but How is it that they all slump at the same time the way they do?
It's so weird. It is. I wish I could explain it, but I really can't. It's so weird, right? I mean, like everybody goes cold all at once, and I think also, for Phillies fans, Rob Thompson has a better bench this year. Mm-hmm. Now again, you got to produce that situation too, right? I mean, would you rather have Weston Wilson, Cody Clemens pitch hitting for Johan Rojas with the bases loaded? Probably so, but they got to come through too. But the point is, Rob Thompson has a little bit more options, a little bit more flexibility than he did last year. But at the end of the day, if Schwarber, Turner, and Harper don't hit, they're not winning the World Series. And I mean, I don't want to overlook and assume that the Phillies want to pitch great. I mean, I feel like they'll pitch well enough to keep them in games. By no means, I don't think they'll be like the 2005 Chicago White Sox, where I think every pitcher threw a complete game in the ALCS, except for one. I don't think they'll dominate like that. But if the Phillies, I mean, if they get good pitching, they're usually going to win most of the time. But the high price talent has to hit. It's just that simple. And when they face a lefty, when they face a left-hander, Bone, Casty, Turner, and Realmuto is going to have to hit. I mean, it's a lineup that's deep. When you get to it, I mean, Stott and Marshall wild cards. By now you wish they weren't wild cards. You wish you had more confidence. I mean, Stott has hit better the last month, but you don't know where Stott and Marsh are going to how they're going to impact these, and obviously the inavailability of Austin Hayes has hurt because you went out traded, and this was like your answer to left-handed pitching, and unfortunately, it just didn't happen that way. I mean, I'm glad he's feeling better. I'm glad he's getting healthier. But I mean, I think it's a deep Phillies team. I think they're good. I think they, we'll see what happens on Saturday. I mean, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about the rest and the layoff and things like that. I mean, you could have been like the Mets and Braves and played the double hit on Monday. Wild card. I mean, I don't think anybody would have wanted to do that. So, you just bet off just winning your division and, take it. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen this year for the Astros, but I mean, obviously, the Astros haven't had difficulty with this format because they've been to the ALCS prior to this year 7 straight years, which is really challenging to do.
Yeah, not sad to see the Astros out of the playoffs at all.
I don't think anybody is.
I'm happy to see them out of it. Glad to see them go. Question. 2019, we signed Bryce Harper. 13-year deal. Next season will be year number 7. This is their 3rd straight year in the playoffs. At this point now, like what should we expect from him at this point now? Because now we're almost halfway through this deal. We've had a World Series trip, followed that up with a trip to the NLCS. We're now it's time for some expectation. He's been here a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, and he'll be the first to tell you. I mean, he wants a World Series championship. The problem with baseball and probably any other sport, obviously, winning a championship is really hard. And it depends on a lot of things, right? If Bryce Harper was playing one-on-one, that'd be a little different. But let's think about Bryce Harper could go like 30 for 30 in the playoffs, and the Phillies still don't win the World Series. So it's like one of those things where it's not solely on one person. I mean, he just has to be Bryce, be a threat, and deliver key hits when the time calls for it. And obviously, he did a lot of that in 2022, whether it was obviously Bedlam at the bank, additional home runs or hits in the gap, doubles here or there. Again, he just has to put quality, consistent at bats together. Because you could like hit the ball 300 miles an hour and hit it right at the fielder. when you can hit the ball 2 miles an hour and then be like 4 for 4 in a game. So I mean, so baseball's so random, unfortunately, and so annoying. But I think you just Bryce is. I mean, he's lived up to the contract. The only thing he hasn't delivered is a World Series, but I don't think that's through no fault of his own. Obviously he didn't have good game 6 or 7, but I also think the Diamondbacks decided we're not pitching to him, we're not giving anything to hit. We just rather walk him and make the rest of the team beat us, and that didn't happen. So, again, I think that once you look at Bryce's contract and what he's done, I think he's done more than we could have ever hoped for. Right? We had the World Series appearance, we had the NLCS appearance, we won it in National League East, and again, they're in position for another deep run. And that's all. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for. Because again, baseball's so random. I mean,
and Bryce has also been critical in recruiting other players to come play with him. I don't want to undersell that part as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, now the Phillies are locked into a lot of contracts offensively. It's just, unfortunately, where do you go? Where do you, I know they were flirting with bringing in Luis Robert from the White Sox. I'm glad that didn't happen. It would have been wonderful if the A's had made Britt Rooker available.
That would have been the perfect one.
That would have been, that'd be a perfect piece. But again, defensively, he was just as a liability as Schwarber. So you're like, oh, okay, well.
Oh yeah.
So again, I think that if Stott and Marsh, and Real Muto can hit, I think that will go a long way in helping the Phillies. And it's also, just switching gears real quick, it's also like the Dodgers. I don't think the Dodgers are as good as the Phillies, right? I think that, obviously Phillies have superior starting pitchers to the Dodgers, but the Dodgers have 3 future Hall of Famers anchoring the top of their lineup who are who are dynamite, right? So the key with the Dodgers is trying to control hitters 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So you don't want 8 and 9 to get on, and now here comes Shohei with 2 runners on base and nobody out. Or here comes Mookie Betts in the same situation, or Freddie Freeman. Now you got issues, right? So I think a team like the Dodgers is kind of in the same boat. But getting back to the Phillies, I think that Bryce has been great. Bryce has been fantastic. He's a pillar of the community. He loves it here. He holds himself accountable. And by all reasonable, he hasn't gotten himself into any mess or any junk or anything like that. And so I mean, I think Bryce has fulfilled his contract. Obviously, if he can win the World Series or 2, that'd be the icing on the cake. But winning a championship is hard.
It's funny. Friend of the show, I know a guy we all respect. Mike Patton wrote an article a long time ago. We've held him to this article. But he talked about Bryce Harper living up to his contract, and would he live up to this contract? This was an article he wrote, at this point now 6-7 years ago. But you look at the player that he has become, as popular as he is. I'm not sure the last player to really captivate this city that wasn't drafted by a team in this city in a long time. In a very long time. When you think of the stars of this city, the stars that who've been the most popular, Embiid was drafted here. T.O. But that was only a year, and then after that,
But he captivated the city. It didn't work out, but when T.O. came in,
he captivated the city. Even 2005. Probably Mike Vick. But again, Vick was kind of the same way 1 year. But no, he was there longer, but Vic had that really outstanding 2010.
But now, like I said, next year is
now Saquon.
For Saquon. We'll see about Saquon, but I guess with Bryce Harper, it's been consistent now. We're now talking about year 7, and it's like, I mean, people love him like he spent his whole career in Philly. Like people don't even think about his Washington years. Whereas, and I'm not sure, like you said, I get T.O., I get Mike Vick, but still, they didn't have the longevity as a Bryce Harper. Like Bryce Harper's now been beloved in this town for 6 years. It's been that long. And that's great. That's crazy to me. And sometimes with popularity as far as Philly athletes, it's like waiting for the other shoe to drop when those players don't produce the ultimate prize.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at some point in time, people are going to get tired of it, or you're going to start hearing the chirping. You know, how long did Joel Embiid walk on water in this city before he started hearing the chirps of can he do it? Can he be the guy? Is he the guy? And now we're going into, next year will be year 7 of this $300+ million contract.
Well, in fairness, I would say the chirping about Embiid started before he ever played a game because of the injuries.
Okay.
They were always questioning circling Embiid because he was hurt from the day he was drafted.
Mm-hmm.
And then right in the middle of that, the next year they drafted Ben Simmons, who's injured early, and they had multiple big. It was the whole thing with them. They were going to be questioned.
It was years,
That was the process, though.
That's what Joel Embiid played. He was drafted 2.5 years before he played.
At least 2 years.
Because he didn't start playing until January of year 2 or year 3. It might have been year 3.
Wasn't that a lockout year? Because I feel like he played the whole. I thought he played the whole season, but it wasn't. But
he started playing in January. They won a couple of games, and I think they shut him down.
No, I'm saying I thought that was a lockout year. Like the season started in January, or close to that. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I don't remember.
Either way, your point is valid though.
Mm-hmm. But Bryce, this guy, he's really done everything he can for the city.
Yes. I mean, that's true.
I mean,
so it's hard to be critical because he came here when the Phillies were bad.
Yes.
Yeah, they had Reese. Yep.
Yeah, they had Reese Hoskins, Aaron Nola. They were very young, and there wasn't much of anything else. We're not even going to go through the list of guys they trotted out to center field or some of these guys that were out there.
You don't want to bring up the Odubel Herrera years.
Exactly.
Oh,
that guy. So. Yeah. It wasn't like Bryce said, "Hey, I'm gonna go to a loaded Dodgers team, and we're just gonna be the favorite to win every year." He decided to come to Philly and build something,
and that he has. I admit that. I understand that. I'm not arguing.
So as long as he goes out there, plays hard, gives it everything he got, I think he's shielded to an extent from the level of criticism we know is possible in Philly for some athletes.
Look, man, I mean, that's fine. Baltimore Orioles are out of the playoffs.
Yeah, they went outside too.
Mm-hmm.
They went outside.
They went out. They went outside. I remember 2007. Let's go back before the World Series went in 08.
Mm-hmm.
Phillies win a division, play the Colorado Rockies, and get swept.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't even feel like playoffs to me. That just felt like 3 extra games.
When it goes that fast and your team is losing, you don't really take any joy out of it at all. So
no, not at all. And you look at the Baltimore Orioles, you got 2 home games in the playoffs.
He scored 1 run over 18.
And you score 1 run in 2 games, and your playoffs is over.
And this Baltimore team was supposed to be able to score runs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had. They had bases loaded, nobody out in the 5th, and did not score.
Mm-hmm. So that goes back to the conversation we were having with JB earlier. Like the Phillies aren't the only team that play that way, where men on in scoring position, and we feel like old school baseball, you should be guaranteed a couple runs in that situation. But guys these days are coming out thinking about things like launch angle instead of just putting the ball in play.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's the majors these days. It's not just the Phillies issue.
No, you're right. You're
And
absolutely
again,
right about that.
You know, the Orioles case, I mean, the Royals only scored 3 runs, but you know, it was more than enough. And so, I mean, that's the whole randomness of baseball. You know, now I'm watching the Mets, and the Mets they hit like, you know, they turned to walk at a 30-foot hit, and now they got first and second, 1 out. So it's you know, you're just like, oh my gosh. So,
two playoff games. You get outscored 3-1 in your own at home.
Yeah.
And you watching the rest on TV, man.
Yeah,
Well,
tough one for Baltimore.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Mets get off to a good start, they're gonna be a long night for Milwaukee. And I mean, Atlanta, they got Max Fried. Obviously, by the time
you're right about that.
I'm sure that, you know, tonight, and if the Braves can somehow win, they got Lopez going tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, three of the 4 ALDS for the AL Central. I don't think nobody saw that one coming. So, you know, in some ways, maybe 3 of the 4. Well, no, I don't want 3 of the 4 NLDS to be National League East. I want San Diego, Milwaukee to win, and now it's 1-0 New York. You know, just a CNI single.
Game 1. Well, let me ask you this before we jump back into the Phillies for a second. Game 1 of the ALDS would be Saturday. Now we talk about Saturday, so we talk about the layoff team. You know, basically the Yankees would be Yankees going to end up playing the Royals.
Mm-hmm.
At this point now, you're talking a Yankees team that will have been sitting for almost a week. But the Royals have had a couple of days off now too. Do you think in your opinion, does that even the playing field?
You would think. I mean, it's only 2 days, so I mean, you would think, but I mean, you know, the Yankees, they've been an interesting team all year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, they really got Judge and Soto, and that's it. You know, I mean, Jazz Chisholm had a big series in Philly, but you know, the Yankees. This is not the Yankees of like the, you know, obviously late '90s, of course.
Yeah,
these aren't the Derek Jeter
Phillies that weekend, though.
Huh?
I said Chisholm really did smash the Phillies that weekend, man.
He did.
Me and Jonesy used to get together and watch a baseball game at the cigar bar. Mm-hmm. So we decided we get together, we watch that game, that Sunday game of that athletic series. And the Phillies just got smashed, man.
Rooker brought his bat with him to work that day for sure.
Oh my goodness, that was ridiculous, man.
But I mean, you know,
absolutely.
But if it's Phillies Mets on Saturday, which I'm starting to believe it will be, you know, Phillies got to show up and play.
They do. And can you believe that this would be the first time the Phillies and the Mets ever played in the full season?
I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But you think about it, with the old playoff format, it would have been very tough to see.
Well, because they were always in
the same division.
Yeah.
Especially with the Phillies not making the playoff, like no wild card team.
Well, it couldn't have happened until the wild card.
Yeah, until the wild card era, which was like 1995. Right. But the Mets and Phillies have never really been good at the same time either.
That is true.
Right.
I mean, there's been some random years, like obviously like 2007, 2008, 2006. The Mets of 2000, you know, like the early 2000s, both Mets and Phillies were good at the same time. And, you know, this year they're both good at the same time. So it's either like sometimes it's always been like one team that's been like really good. Like when the Mets went to the World Series, they were really good. In 2015, the Phillies weren't. And, you know, 2022, 2023, the Phillies were good. The Mets weren't. So, I mean, I think baseball's better when the Mets and Phillies are good at the same time. I think it's, you know, good. It's crazy because the other night, the Braves and Mets, you know, obviously I get the spirit of sportsmanship and stuff like that. They would celebrate on the field with each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's so weird to me, but, you know, again, we grew up in an era now where the fan base is like, I don't like the Braves, I don't like the Mets, right? I don't like the Nationals, I don't like the Marlins because they're in the East. Fans, we hold on to those states, right?
Yeah.
But the players, because there's so much movement and so many things, they don't necessarily get caught up in I can't stand the Mets or I can't stand the Braves type thing or whatever. Like, is there some what's the word? Animosity between teams? Probably. But at the same time, I don't think it's like like it was in the 80s.
It's funny because it's funny to me because I saw that and I didn't like it. And usually I'm not somebody who's bothered by stuff like that because just like you said, it's just a sign of the times where these players are always moving. You see so many players with the same agent,
you saw Slay do a Cowboys podcast this week.
I didn't like that either.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I didn't particularly care for it,
But you have to also remember that in a social media, cell phone, travel, sports era, a lot of these guys have known each other since they were 10, 11, 12 years old. So it's not like the old era where all you knew about this guy was the tape your coach gave you to watch and that he wanted to stop you from getting the ring. These guys are actually your friends and buddies you hang out with before you became pros now.
And with I guess Little League and AAU and
that's what I mean. It starts
and Connie Mack, Babe Ruth League, all that. These kids, I mean, you're absolutely right. You're talking about people who played together for years, knew each other for years, and now it's all of a sudden, you have so much access to other people playing at your level where you can just reach out and talk to them. So, I mean, I understand why we're at this point. And I'm just saying this particular incident, I didn't particularly care for, but it's not something that would stick with me. I'm not someone who's just, the game is ruined. What's going on with these players?
Don't get me wrong. I don't like it either. I just understand that it's a natural result of where we are with things now.
Right.
Like, it's hard to maintain that same level of animosity or venom in sports that was there when you're dealing with people you've been friends with since you were 12 years old.
That's true. That's true. All right, hey Rob, before we wrap things up with as far as the Phillies go, I will give me a player that you feel that you feel confident is just going to step up. Who do you think is going to be the big difference maker aside from the stars? Of course, Bryce Harper's going to do his thing.
Of your X factors.
Who's the X factor?
I'm gonna say Brandon Marsh. I'm gonna say Brandon Marsh because I think if obviously facing a right-handed pitcher, Marsh is going to have to hit because they're not going to let Schwarber and Harper beat them.
Okay.
I think Brandon Marsh has to get on base. I think he has to, be a disruptor.
All right.
I like that pick. Do you think we can expect anything from Stott this playoff run?
I think so. I think Stott delivered. As I mentioned earlier, I think that he's been playing a lot better. He's been hitting the ball a lot better. So let's just see if it carries over into the playoffs. But yeah, Marsh and Stott, they're gonna have to hit because they're not going to let Schwarber and Harper beat them.
And what about Alec Bohm? I feel like you talked about it earlier about how down the stretch last season, people stopped pitching to Bryce Harper, start pitching around Bryce Harper. So you got Bohm coming up behind him in the lineup. Do you think could you see a big series for him or a big postseason for him?
I can. I think out those couple weeks is going to be really beneficial for him and the team. I think that I think he just has a much better approach to plate this year in those situations.
All right, so next week, when we come out, I should say not next week, but when we come out of this coming weekend, the Phillies will have played at least 2 home games in the NLDS. What do you think? Or do you think that depends on the team? Where do you think the Eagles, the Phillies would be come Monday?
They'll be up 2-0. They'll win both home games.
See, I need that. I need
I
that.
mean, I
I'm
think
energy. I'm taking that confidence. I'm bottling that up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll find a way. I mean, it won't be easy. It won't be like 10-0, 11-1, or it'll probably be like 3-2 nail biters and stuff like that. But I think they'll find a way.
So with Sanchez's home and away splits being what they are, do you think he gets one of those first two games, or do you think they just go Wheeler-Nola?
I think they should start Sanchez a game too and see what happens. I think Nola's your vet, your trusted guy that you can start anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And pitching on the road may not be the worst thing in the world for him in this series.
You think pitching on the road might not be?
May be good for Nola.
Oh, for Nola, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you pitch, you bring Sanchez at home, and then put Nola on the road.
Yeah, and then if you get to NLCS, then you flip it. You have, because obviously if it's the Dodgers, you open in LA, so you go Will and Nola, then you come home to Sanchez, and the only downside to that is if that goes 7, you get Sanchez on the road in Game 7 in the NLCS. So so it's like, okay, well, you want, but by that point, I think it would be all hands on deck too. So
understood. Rob, what they got you working on right now, man?
I'm chilling, man. I'm working on some HBCU women's basketball conference previews, the SWAC and the MEAC, which will be probably out in the next couple of weeks. Doing some things for Howard University, of course. Some feature stories for them, and that's it for now. Then I just got some different things. I'm always if the New York Liberty make the finals, I'll be at Game 2 because that's a Sunday afternoon, and that aligns with my schedule. I can get up there to see that. So. But outside of that, man, I'm good, man. I'm about to go eat my dinner. That was dropped off a little while ago, and
there you go.
Head down for the night.
There you go. There you go. All right. So where can people find your work? I know you said you're busy. You got projects cooking. So where can people find your work?
Please feel free to follow me on Twitter at KnoxRob1. I put on work. I'm on LinkedIn at Rob Knox. Those are the two places where most of my work is shared. So definitely appreciate if you supported and followed and read and offer feedback from time to time. I try to be positive on Twitter. I'm multi-layered, so I share a lot of different things on Twitter. So people have always told me I'm a fun follow. So I try to keep that up.
Definitely are. Definitely. I absolutely co-sign that. Rob Knox, man. I'm hoping for a long Philadelphia Philly run in this playoff so I can call you right back and get you right back on this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Anytime.
So we can talk more baseball, man.
Anytime, my guy. I appreciate you too. I appreciate y'all both for that's a strike. But I appreciate you both having me on. It's been my honor and my pleasure to spend part of my Wednesday with you all. So thank y'all so much. Y'all do such a fantastic job.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man. We enjoy having you on. Always talking baseball.
All right, my friend.
As soon as I share it, I'll definitely retweet it and hype it up and stuff.
All right. Rob, thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you. Y'all take care.
All right. Rob Knox, ladies and gentlemen. Always good to have that brother on the show, man. Appreciate him, man.
All right, JB.
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad we're this far into the show.
Okay.
Eagles are coming up on a bye week.
Yes, they are.
So we have a lot of time to marinate, think about this. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week before the Browns game.
Definitely. Does that mean
this week?
Does that mean you don't want to talk too much about that last game, huh?
That means this week we get to keep it short, be concise, get our feelings out, and kind of let it go.
All right.
What's your immediate reaction to last week's game?
My immediate reaction to last week's game is this team has issues. However, I reiterate a point that I made in last week's show in that I feel like it's still early enough in the season that the issues I have don't necessarily have to be damning. So
you think the defense can improve?
I do think the defense can improve.
Do you think the quarterback could improve?
Yes,
now that's what I want to talk to you about, because we talked about this a little bit, and I feel like I've never seen a quarterback in Philadelphia be shielded from criticism the way Hurts is. Not that he gets no criticism, but it's like people are hesitant to criticize Hurts in comparison to any other quarterback we've had in Philadelphia.
Because I feel you for real. You gonna wait till 55 minutes into this show, and maybe we can get into that. But I feel like to use your term, a term you use when we have our sports dialogue, I feel like there's a level of nuance to a conversation about Jalen Hurts.
Agreed.
And I say that to say that I am not sure. I don't. Unfortunately, it's not yet fully black and white, cut and dry.
All right, so you're right.
These issues are all his fault, or even mostly his fault. But there is a lot of fault.
You're absolutely right. But he is the one constant.
Yes.
And honestly, I've had questions about Hurts his whole career. And it's not like I've called him a bum or incompetent, but I feel like a lot of times I've been alone in being willing to point out flaws in his game. And it feels like people are still hesitant to say, well, maybe it's Hurts. You've tried several different coordinators, multiple systems. Is it just always going to be the coaches? Is it always going to be because we change systems? Because if that's the case, you're going to end up changing systems and having new coaches every year because it's always them.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but I feel like with this particular quarterback, there are still avenues to explore before we get to that point. And I think he's running out of he's running out of, for lack of a better term, excuses.
Okay.
And I think that in the case of Jalen Hurts, it's going to hit like a ton of bricks. When he finally gets to, there's going to be a point, if they do not turn this around and capture the ultimate goal, that criticism is finally going to set in. And I think when it does, it's going to be like a tsunami up in this piece.
See, here's the thing. This is Jalen Hurts' 5th year in the NFL, 4th year as a starter. Of those 4 years as a starter, how many of them would you actually say he played the quarterback position well?
One and a half.
So you see what I mean?
But also, how many of those seasons would you say he was awful?
Well, in the last 20 games,
not struggling, but awful.
In the last 20 games, he has the most turnovers in the league.
I understand, but has he been
27 turnovers in 20 games?
But would you call him awful?
You don't have to be awful to be hurting your team with that many turnovers.
No, I
can feel me, because it's not like it's one thing if a guy is out there throwing 5 for 18, completing 30%, just missing every throw. That's awful. But you don't have to be that if every time you're driving, you decide to drop the ball and let your team's momentum get killed. I can have an 80% completion percentage and then drop the ball, and I'm not awful, but I'm killing my team with turnovers.
I know. I understand it. I guess when I look at criticism, I look at this man's predecessor, and I think when this city when this city had enough of Carson Wentz, at that point Carson Wentz was awful.
Agreed. But
so I'm asking you,
Jalen Hurts has also had a better group to work with than Wentz ever had.
Okay.
Including the Super Bowl year.
Fair enough.
Wentz never had a group like this.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But nonetheless, do you think Jalen Hurts has played as poorly as Carson Wentz was when we were sick of Carson Wentz?
It's not much better. Because Wentz's big issue at that point was the turnovers. Holding the ball too long, not reading defenses, and turnovers.
Okay.
The same issues we're having with Hurts right now.
All right. Well, let's table this until a time where we can really get into it, like next week.
Oh, absolutely. Just something to think about on the time off.
No problem. No problem. All right, you let us know what you think of the show. You hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twix at BITW Sports or at Jonesy and Brown. Remember, you can download
Twix is a candy bar.
What'd you say?
Twix is a candy bar.
No, it's not. It's a social media site. It's a see. I tried to just throw it in there and just be subtle and just not even call attention to it. But still, you still hung up on this. Twix is a thing. But nonetheless, hit us up on social media at Jonesy and Brown or at BITW Sports. Download this podcast. Get wherever you get your podcast from. Just go to BITWsports.com. Once again, that man by my side is Mr. Mike Jones. I am John Brown. Enjoy the football. Enjoy the baseball. Enjoy, if you can, the WNBA playoffs, because right when there's a game you really want to see in football or baseball, they're going to slide a WNBA game in there for some reason because they just hard-headed and ignorant like that. But it's all right, though. The WNBA games have still been good, even though
that's what the people want to see.
What'd you say?
I said that's what the people want to see.
Yeah, exactly. When I want to see my NBA, why would I want to watch an NFL when WNBA is on? It's all good. It's the playoffs. I can get with it. It's all good. Either way, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the sports. Me and Jonesy, we'll holler at you next week. Peace, y'all.